here with Bushcraft Survival and Primitive Skills, Mickey Wilson. Sorry I haven't been around lately. Hopefully here in the next couple months we can get back down to some bushcraft. But here's another little plant video that I just finished up. It's going on to YouTube, but I decided to upload it here to make it easier for you guys to watch so you don't have to leave Facebook. So I hope you guys enjoy. I see a plant over here and we call it devil's claw around here. You can see it growing there. Devil's claw has a light pinkish color flower, pinkish white on this one. So when these turn into pods, these are edible. You can boil them, fry them. Personally, cooking them like okra probably tastes the best, but they're not that great anyway. But the pods, once they're dried, they look like devil's claw. And I will find some of those later and show them to you. Oh, here we go. Those are the pods from last year. See why they call them devil's claw. They like to latch on to things and go with you places. So, excuse me. So this plant has been used, the roots, the tubers, it's been used for lots of things by the natives as far as medicinally. You know, you can make poultices to help with muscle pains and gout and such, as well as take it internally to help with fevers and all kinds of things. But this is one of those you want to be kind of careful with and make sure you don't overtake, because it can be somewhat toxic. And I know it is toxic to certain animals. I think horses can eat this stuff. But this is known as devil's claw. Very pretty plant. Looks similar to a mallow. Maybe it possibly in the mallow family. I'm not 100% sure, but it does resemble a mallow in a lot of its qualities. Oh, so I forgot one of the coolest things about the devil's claw plant. So the natives used to think that they attracted lightning. So they would plant devil's claw in their corn crops and everything else that they grew so that it would attract lightning. And you know, with lightning comes rain. So a lot of times when you find these, it's actually where the natives used to grow crops. So that is why they're growing in that area. When you do find them where they naturally grow, you'll find them all over the place. And they're perennial, so they come back every single year. Even if you mow them, they'll come back. So that's an interesting fact about the devil's claw, is that they supposedly attract lightning. Hey guys, so here's another plant that is grown everywhere. A lot of people don't know that we can also as well eat it, make breads and things from it, flour. It's known as sorghum or milo. You can see a whole field of it right here. Got some pigweed along the edges, but that's milo. When these are ripe, these will be a reddish, orangish reddish color. It's mainly used to feed livestock, but in the event of something happening, don't pass up a field of milo if you're starving. So here's a pretty cool plant. Now, you can eat the young leaves, the young shoots, raw or cooked, as well as the roots from the younger plants. You can eat those raw or cooked. You can also dry the roots, grind them up, and use them as a coffee substitute. Now, this plant's also been used medicinally for quite a few things. So you can make poultices out of it to use on all sorts of skin infections and rashes and things along that nature, you know, bruises and ringworm even, I think. Now the seeds in the actual cocklebur itself. So the seeds, you can dry those and grind them up, and they are used in to help treat respiratory issues. All sorts of respiratory issues. This plant is known as cocklebur. Out here is what we call it, but I also think it's called burdock in a lot of places, and I'll show this to you. Now this hadn't started putting on the cockleburs yet, but you can see the young blooms starting there. Now this one's a little old to be eaten. As you can see, the horses have been chewing it up, but you could still use the roots. This plant's young enough, it's just starting to bloom. Preferably I would get them before they start to bloom, but if you're in dire need of some medicine or something, this would still be okay to use. But that is cocklebur. Hey guys, so I see a better specimen of cocklebur I wanted to show you. Much nicer specimen than the first one. Hey guys, another plant which can be used to make cordage, used to make clothing. The fibers can be used to make blankets and all kinds of things. Oh, sorry about the sun. Is cotton. This is cotton. The cotton is in these pods here. Once these are dry, it will have a nice fluff in there that you can use to make all sorts of things. Now you can also do this with all other types of plants that put on a fluffy top or pod or something like this. It's just cotton is a little easier, it's a little stronger, and it's much more comfortable than most other fibers. Hey guys, so here's another pretty cool weed. It's in the smartweed family, and out here we call it pinkweed, but you can use it as a pepper substitute. And one way to tell if you've got the right plant or not is when you put some in your mouth and the leaves and such, chew on them, they're pretty spicy, and that's a good indicator that you got the correct plant. The natives used to grind the leaves up and eat them, add them to other foods. They didn't eat a lot of them. This is one of those plants you wouldn't want to overtake, but a really cool use of this plant, as well as some of the other smartweeds, is this is one of those plants that you can grind up the leaves and add them to water, you know, say a pond or something, and it will disrupt the oxygen intake of the fish and cause them to float up to the surface. There's quite a few different plants that do that, but this is one here in the United States that can be used for that. And I'll show you this. And you can see why we call it pinkweed out here. These nice, fluffy, pink, flowery tops. Very pretty plant. The young shoots and leaves are a little more edible than the adult leaves, but this is pinkweed. So here's another plant that is edible. It's not necessarily native to the US, but it's grown everywhere over here. So the seeds are excellent source of oil and fat. And if you know anything about fat, you need fat to help you digest. Now, this plant doesn't necessarily grow in the wild, but say something were to happen, all these fields are excellent sources of food and such that you could use. And this plant's known as soybeans. You can see the beans here. Now, when these beans inside of here, when they are green, they are excellent. They're edible raw or cooked. When they are dry, they're not so much edible, but that's how you can make milk. And you can also add the ground up seeds to flours and things. And I want to say that tofu is made from dried up soybeans. So there's a whole field of it. Here's a very pretty plant. There's, I don't know, 80 or 100 different species of this plant or types of this plant in the same genus. So the seeds of this plant are edible, as well as I know the natives used to take the leaves and they would brew them into a tea, and they would use that to help soothe coughs, sore throats, as well as help to alleviate some of the fever symptoms. They would also take the leaves and grind them into a poultice and use it on skin lesions, sores, boils, burns, things of that nature. But it's known as bricklebush. This is more of a desert variety. Looks very similar to desert tobacco in a way. The leaves, however, are very similar to desert tobacco. But this one's not as shrub-like as a lot of the bricklebush, say the California bricklebush and some of those. But out here in the desert, plants, and this isn't desert, this is grasslands desert, but plants tend to grow thin, long stalks, and they're bushy up top. The reason for that is if this plant was bushy down here, it's got to fight all this grass for its sunlight. So that's one reason these plants will grow longer stems out here in the Southwest, is so that all their leaves are up top where they can get some good UV light. So here's something else that's edible, very high in protein, and not a plant. You can hear it. I hope you guys can hear it. Kind of a buzzing sound. Those are cicadas. There's a lot of people around here that call them locusts. However, they are not a locust. A locust is a extremely large grasshopper. But cicadas, they're about, I don't know, 3-4 inches long, about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch wide, big eyes, big wings. You can hear some crickets too, but that buzzing sound, those are cicadas. I have never had cicadas, but I may have to try some this year. Roasted, of course. So this is a pretty neat plant. There's a few different varieties of it. The one we get out here, we call it Western ironweed. I don't know the scientific name for this plant, but it has a distinctive lightish purpley colored flower. This one's already bloomed, and so you won't be able to see the flowers. Now, edible uses, there's not really much you can eat on it. I mean, I have read that the natives would nibble on the roots and the leaves, but medicinally, this plant's amazing. It's been used for thousands of years, and we're still using it today in modern medicine. So I'm not going to tell you everything this plant can be used for. You can go look it up if you're curious, because there's a ton of stuff. But it can be used everything from dandruff to blood issues to kidney stones, kidney problems, all kinds of stuff. The roots, the natives would grind up into poultices and use on the skin, as well as dry them and make teas from them. But they mainly made teas from the leaves. And you can use this, mouth sores, all kinds of stuff. And I'll show you what it looks like. It's kind of late summer, so it's already put its blooms on. But it's a very pretty plant. Now, out here, I never find this growing in the shade, ever. You always, out here, you find it in pasture fields. But it's ironweed, or western ironweed is what we like to call it. I'll show you guys another type of grass, blue stem grass. You can see some more of it over there. Blue stem grass likes to grow in bunches. Gets pretty tall. The seeds are very small, but you can add the seeds to other flower sources, as well as use this plant to make cordage or for insulation and weaving blankets and things like that, as most grasses. Other type of grass, it's called side oats, and I want to say it's actually more closer related to rye grasses and barleys, but the seeds on this, they're going to be a little bit bigger than some grasses. You can eat them, add them to flowers and such. So you can see a whole bunch of these side oats growing through here. I talked to you guys about sawtooth daisy. I just wanted to show you it blooming out. In my other video, these hadn't bloomed out yet. But very pretty plant. Hey guys, so this is a plant I don't see out here too much because it's not wet enough, but in certain areas where it is wet enough, it grows well. And this is milkweed. I actually think it's just a common type of milkweed. Now with the milkweeds, they're edible. They're best edible when they're young, but there's something you want to boil because they can be bitter, and the white sap inside there is somewhat toxic. So you want to make sure you boil your leaves and such before you eat it, just so it's not bitter. Now, if you've done that and it's still bitter, I would recommend not eating it. One, because it's going to not taste very good. And two, because it still contains a little bit of toxin, and you don't necessarily want to be eating toxins. So, but this is milkweed. Out here we get broadleaf milkweed, which you can find all over the place. But common milkweed you only see out here generally in wetter areas. So here's another plant. It's in the spurge family, and I'm not sure if this is edible or not, but one thing I know about spurges is spurges are toxic, so I'm 99% sure this is probably toxic as well. But it's tooth spurge is the name of it. I think some people call these a type of poinsettia, but this is tooth spurge, or western spurge, I think is another name for it. But they have very pretty flowers when they bloom. So here's another grass. I've not talked about it, but it grows everywhere out here, and it's called buffalo grass. And you can see this nice mat. It's all buffalo grass. Some back in there. Over here. You see the seed heads on it. Now, buffalo grass, how it got its name is the prairies mainly consisted of buffalo grass hundreds of years ago. And that's what the buffalo mainly ate. Now, one thing the Native Americans noticed was or the natives, is when a fire would start in the prairies and burn through, the buffalo grass would come back twice as good the next year. So the natives, being the natives, started burning large swaths of the grasslands about every 4 or 5 years, because it would make the grasses come back taller and thicker, which would in turn attract more buffalo, increase the herd's sizes of the buffalo. The natives were excellent at managing the land. So here's a really pretty flowering plant. Now the roots or the tubers, the natives used to eat those, and what they would do, they would roast or boil them before they would consume them. Now I want to say the Blackfoot, I think it was the Blackfoot, they would make a tea from the leaves and use that to help reduce swelling and such. And this flower is known as, or plant's known as gayfeather. I think the correct name for this one is dotted gayfeather, but it's very abundant out here in the prairies. Very pretty. It's becoming very popular in ornamental gardens nowadays. Guys, so this is a pretty cool plant. It's known as Maximilian or Maximilian flower, but it's a type of sunflower. Now what's cool about this plant compared to other sunflower plants, I mean the edible and medicinal purposes are basically the same, but what's different about this plant is it likes to grow long straight shoots. Now the sunflower plants make excellent spindles, you know, for bow drills or hand drills. But one thing this does better than the others, because it's so straight, is it makes very good hand drills. You can see it here. See how tall it is? I'm 6'2", and that one there is almost as tall as me. But they like to grow very straight. That is Maximilian sunflower. Alright guys, I was just showing you the Maximilian sunflower. I wanted to show you another type of grass that we get out here, and we call it Johnson grass. I'm pretty sure that's the real name for it, but everybody around here, we call it Johnson grass. And it's in the sorghum family. So you can eat the seeds, add them to flowers, you know, make beer and such with them. But this is what the plant looks like, Johnson grass. And here's some of the seeds. If you look, they look very similar to milo seeds. Well, milo is sorghum, grain sorghum, as well as Johnson grass.